The Republican war on direct democracy has extended to at least 10 states. What is direct democracy, you may ask? You know, there's different kinds of democracy. When the founders set up this country, they established it as a representative democratic republic. Republic is the system, the package that the Constitution provides, our form of government. Democracy means that package is driven by the people by majority vote. And a representative democratic republic means that instead of the people themselves voting on individual issues and laws, the people themselves vote to have people represent them who vote on individual laws and you know, policies and things. But in about half our states, we have actual direct democracy. We have it here in Oregon, for example, and it's called ballot initiatives. In about half the states, you can't do this, but in about half the states, and most of this came about, by the way, in the last 3 decades of the 1800s and the first 2 decades of the 1900s. There was about a 50-year period there where there was so much pushback, so much backlash against how corrupt American politics had gotten that the people were demanding a say in politics because their legislators weren't doing squat, or the squat that they were doing was not on behalf of the people. And so, you know, most of the states that became states after 1860 have this provision of direct democracy, which is most of the Western states. But and activists have used this direct democracy to produce a lot of really good stuff. Expanding Medicaid, raising the minimum wage, getting abortion rights, protect the right to vote, curb gerrymandering, legalizing marijuana, promoting gun safety. Stephen Wolfe is writing about this over at dailycoz.com, which is the source of the data I'm going to share with you. This is fascinating because the Republicans are now saying, you know, we don't really like direct democracy. Why? Because the people are voting for things Republicans oppose. For example, in Arizona, voters in Arizona in 2020 used a ballot initiative to legalize marijuana, to increase taxes on the rich, to increase funding for education, and to raise the minimum wage to $12 an hour and create paid sick leave. All those things were done by ballot initiative. So this year, Republicans have passed a constitutional amendment raising to 60% the threshold, instead of a simple majority to pass a constitutional requirement. Now you must have 60% of the vote. They're also raising signature requirements. It used to be you had to have a certain number of people in 15%. You had to have 15% of registered voters statewide. Now you have to have 15% of registered voters statewide and in all 30 legislative districts. In other words, you're going to have to get 15% of the people in the reddest of the red counties, which means that these kind of ballot measures are just not going to make it anymore. Same thing in Arkansas. Arkansas voters previously raised the minimum wage to $11 in 2018. In 2016, they used ballot measures to legalize marijuana. Republicans are unhappy about that, so they enacted a new statute to increase the requirement to 50 counties. In other words, now if you're going to do this, you have to get to all 50 counties, the same percentage of people, 5% of the last vote for governor. And this includes counties like one that Trump won 77-20. Florida voters in 2018 approved an amendment restoring the voting rights of over 1 million people who had served felonies, but were, now had served their time. Voters also increased the minimum wage to $15 in 2020. They passed anti-gerrymandering measures in 2010. They tried to legalize marijuana. It's on the ballot for 2024. So Republicans are pushing through a thing that it's in committee right now that would require a 66.7% supermajority to pass a future ballot, a future constitutional amendment. In Idaho, voters in Idaho expanded Medicaid in 2018. They used the threat of an initiative in 2020 to push the Republican-controlled legislature to increase funding to public schools. So this year, Republicans are passing a constitutional amendment to make it harder to get voter signatures equal to 6% of the registered votes in voters in all 35 legislative districts instead of the current simple majority of 18 districts. In Mississippi, after Mississippi voters legalized marijuana in 2020, that was it for Mississippi Republicans. They said, no, we don't like democracy anymore. And so now they're making it harder to pass a ballot initiative there. In Missouri, same deal. In recent years, Missouri voters have legalized marijuana, expanded Medicaid, made legislative redistricting fairer, adopted new ethics rules for Congress, for their state House and Senate, raised the minimum wage to $12 an hour, and vetoed the Republicans' right to work law, all through ballot initiative. So now the Republicans in the legislature passed an amendment to the state House, that would require a 60% supermajority of voters for future ballot initiatives. In North Dakota, voters established a state ethics committee in 2018, voted to legalize marijuana last year. Although that measure lost, they got it on the ballot. Well, Republicans were like, we got to have enough of that. And so now the signature gatherers have to have been state residents for 120 days. It's against the law now to pay them, and the signature requirement has been raised by 25%. In Ohio, this year, Ohio Republicans have reintroduced a constitutional amendment to require a 60% supermajority for future amendments. In Oklahoma, the voters in 2020 expanded Medicaid and also created tried to create an independent redistricting commission until the pandemic disrupted things. Voters also recently attempted to legalize recreational marijuana after approving it for medicinal use in 2018. So this year, Republican legislators passed a bill in the state Senate that adds a $750 fee for filing an initiative, doubles the time to challenge the petition, and makes petition signature verification more stringent. In Utah voters passed in 2018 a statutory initiative to create a redistricting commission, expanded Medicaid, and legalized medical marijuana, all by ballot measures, all in 2018 in Utah. This year, Republican lawmakers passed a bill in the state House that would require a 60% supermajority for future initiatives. Bottom line, Republicans' motto, democracy for me, but not for thee.